Opinions expressed are those of the sponsor and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the station and its management.
Good morning. Court Radio is now in session. Call 215-227-2727. When you've got legal questions, we've got the answers. This is Court Radio. And now here's your host, Dean Weitzman.
Good morning and welcome back. It's Court Radio and I'm Dean Weitzman. It is another episode where you've got the opportunity to ask your legal questions one at a time, and I will do my very best to answer them. All you got to do is give us a call to studio, 215-227-2727. 215-227-2727. That's the number for my Philly lawyer all week long, and it's the number for Court Radio today. 215-227-2727. A little bit of an explosion there. Yeah, so everything is cool. We're back in the studio at Philly's R&B and Old School 100.3 on the dial. And we're on Praise Radio, and we're on 107.9. So you can find us everywhere in Philly and Sunday mornings. This is Court Radio, and it's the people's show to get their legal questions answered or have a conversation about the topics of the day. Speaking of which, there's a few things in the news I thought were interesting. Number one, and we'll circle back to this with our upcoming guest, but number one, SEPTA votes today on whether to strike November 1st. It's been 2 years. The last strike vote was close, but they went for no strike. The contract is up at the end of the month, and the question looms again. Will SEPTA strike? Will folks have to find alternate ways to get to work? And what methods can they use? So we'll see later today, I guess. The vote is expected today. We have more folks, more women accusing Trump of sexual predatory behavior. This has been in the news for the last week. Mr. Trump has denied the allegations emphatically, but it continues to dog his campaign. People are jumping ship like rats off of a boat. And the question is, I mean, you know, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. And in fact, the entire show got taken up by this, and I don't want that to happen today. But, you know, are the folks who were adamantly Trump supporters before continuing to be adamant Trump supporters today in light of all of these revelations? And you know, I mean, you might think one or two women made up or exaggerated, but when you get to 8 and 9 and 10, and their stories are so similar to his the words he used that were caught on that hot mic in 2005, you have to scratch your head and wonder if there is an element of truthfulness to those bravado comments he made and to the stories that have been kind of coming out into the news from the women who accuse him. Anyway, I'll tell you one thing. I was at a charity event yesterday, the Bread of Life Foundation annual luncheon, and I emceed that, and I said to the folks there, and I'll say to my listeners here, I will be so happy when this election is over. I think folks are just so tired of listening to politicians blabber about how they're going to be the one that saves the boat from capsizing. You know, most of these folks are just going to continue the same old. That's not necessarily horrible. It's not, you know, it's still the best system in the world. But the point is that it's enough already. Okay, stop talking. Let's Go do your job. Let's see some work from you. That's what I say. Enough. I don't want to hear from politicians anymore, except we have one on the show today, so I'll be sort of kind to the politicians. But, it's enough. Elections. It seems like the presidential election is now a 2-year election process. You have 1 year of primaries and 1 year of election. It used to be a few months, started maybe in the spring, and then it sort of died down, and the fall it really picked up again. Now it is absolutely on the public airwaves for 24 months, and the primary, the cast of thousands. I don't know. It would be better if the Republican Party kind of figured out the one or two people who have the most to offer. Like they should interview them like they're giving them a job instead of letting 22, Yankee Doodle politicians from all over the world try to take a run at it. Splinters the party and then laid the foundation for the Trump candidacy. 215-227-2727. Hurricane Matthew took its toll, leaving 26 dead in North Carolina and over 1,000 in Haiti. Our hearts go out to those who have suffered personal losses and wish them the best in their efforts at reconstructing their lives. It was a vicious storm, and I was actually in North Carolina for the hurricane, a little bit further off the coast, and so not in direct harm's way, but I saw some of the damage done down there, and it is catastrophic. 215-227-2727. If you've got a legal question you've been sitting on all week long, now's the time to try to get in on the action, and I'll do my best to answer it. The lines are lighting up, folks, so if you got a question or a comment to make on the news of the day, give us a call. That brings us to our hot button topic for today, and I'm going to introduce you to Councilman Derek Green. Welcome to Court Radio again, sir.
Good morning, Dean. It's a pleasure to be with you and the Radio 1 family once again. Thank you for your advocacy and being the voice of Court Radio here in Philadelphia.
Thank you, sir. You've always brought some good information to Court Radio. I know we're going to talk today about some things that are near and dear to you, but I'm going to start off with something that just personally, as a Philadelphia native, seems to be spiraling out of control. And who better to ask than our city councilman, Derek Green? I've been coming to the city now and living in the city and working in the city and being a Philadelphian for my whole life. But for 29 or 30 years, I actually work right across from City Hall. And I have noticed recently an explosion of homelessness. Folks are living on the streets, and if I don't get asked once, I get asked 25 times, and I'm not exaggerating, a day from different homeless people for a handout. It seems like by the seat of my pants, nothing scientific, that this problem is not getting better, it's getting worse. Is there anything, I know it's a global problem, and I mean, it's a Commonwealth problem, it's a city problem, it's a regional problem, and I'm not saying you have a magic bullet, but is it even something that is being talked about at City Council?
Well, one of the challenges that we've had in the city, Philadelphia is a great city, but we are the largest city in the country with the highest amount of poverty. And when you look at some of the things that have happened, and you talk about this being a larger crisis than just the city, we've lost a lot of federal dollars over the years with sequestration, and some of the funding we had to address homelessness is no longer there. And so I know during the street administration, they made a major push to end homelessness, as well as during another administration. Now Mayor Kenny is also trying to focus on that with the Eva Gladstein and her group in reference to shared prosperity and how do we have a more holistic approach to addressing poverty. But the challenge is I think we need to provide more jobs in the city of Philadelphia. We have a number of people who have become homeless because of mental health and behavioral health issues as well. So when you look at this issue, it's not just a poverty issue, but it's also a mental health and behavioral health issue. And we're looking at multiple ways of how we combine our resources to address this issue.
I absolutely couldn't agree more that this may begin as a poverty issue, but it doesn't end there. Mental health issues, we've talked about it, addiction issues need to be addressed by us as a people if we are to rise above this really unsatisfactory way that so many of us are living. Well, I'll tell you, if there's a need for volunteers, I'm in. Okay, I am in. If I can use my head or hands and to work toward a solution, I'm there. You just give me a call, Derek.
Thank you. And one of the challenges is that we have a difficulty in providing enough space for people who may be homeless or transitioning. I was just at a great organization, Women's Community Revitalization Project. They just saw their 30th anniversary just on Friday night, and they provided housing for transitional people who are transitioning from being homeless or having some challenges into affordable housing. And the challenge they have and other organizations like them not having enough resources to build enough homes for those who are homeless. And when you have a loss of federal dollars and some of the state tax dollars, we don't have as much available as we had in the past. They're not able to build as much homes that we need for people who are trying to transition.
That segues into this year's election. Not that I want to talk about that, but if the Senate, United States Senate, becomes democratically run, if the folks with the purse strings become more like the folks in Philadelphia, which would be more democratic, this region may get some more money for these issues. Because when it's the Republicans that are running things, they're going to naturally want to support those people and areas that supported them. That's the way this process works. So as a region, or even Republicans and independents in the Philadelphia region would want to see a Democratic controlled House or Senate, because that will mean that places like Philadelphia will get their fair share of the funds. And I don't think it's happening right now.
Well, when you look at, when I mentioned the phrase sequestration, well, during the Obama administration, especially after the midterm elections in 2010 and 2012, 2014, you had a reduction amount of dollars coming to cities all across the country. And so when you look at not having enough community development block grant dollars or other type of funds that are being used for addressing issues like poverty and homelessness and just other community revitalization efforts, that goes directly to people voting and making sure we have a Congress that represents us in the House and the Senate that's going to provide the dollars to our president. There you go.
All right. I have distracted us from our topic, and you've been a good sport about it, and I appreciate it. But we're here today to talk about the Autism Speaks Walk. And how are you involved in this project?
Well, I became involved in Autism Speaks probably about 7 years ago, and my son, Julian, who is now 15 and just started high school, was diagnosed when he was a little over 2 years old. And so we've been involved in bringing friends and families together to walk for the Autism Walk on Saturday, October 22nd at Citizens Bank Park at 9 o'clock. And it's a really great opportunity to not only get some exercise, but for people who are living with autism, families, and other caregivers who have children or friends on the autistic spectrum, a chance to get resources and information, as well as raise dollars for Autism Speaks.
Derek, how big a problem is this in this area?
Well, in Philadelphia, and we have a phenomenal amount of resources here, not only in Philadelphia, but the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. When you look at when my son was diagnosed, 1 out of every 200 children were diagnosed with autism, and that's 2001. Now it's 1 out of every 68 were diagnosed with autism, and it's the largest developmental disorder for children. Why
is it gone in such a short period of time from 1 in 200 to 1 in 68? Is the problem getting worse, or is the detection getting better?
I think it's probably a combination of both. I mean, I know me and my wife have spoken about people we've known who some years ago, we think may have been diagnosed with autism spectrum or were not diagnosed. And I think that's people are much more knowledgeable about autism and some of the indications of when a person may be in autism spectrum. But I think of the combination of people being more aware of what autism is because of the notoriety and the information, as well as the increase in people with the condition.
How did you know that Julian, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you know Julian had an issue that needed to be investigated? What were the signs or symptoms?
Well, one of the things, I mean, each child on the autism spectrum is different. It's primarily a social challenge in reference to how young people communicate, in reference to when they interact with their parents or caregivers. We were at a great daycare named Child Space in Germantown Avenue in Mount Airy, and it was our daycare provider that gave us some information saying, listen, we think Julian may be in the autism spectrum based on how he's not communicating with other children in his daycare like other children are. And so some of those early signs are some of the eye communication may not be the same, not making great eye contact, not being able to verbalize or communicate as other children may be. But just because you've identified one child on the autism spectrum, that only means you've seen one child, because each child is different with autism.
Right now, in sheer numbers, how many children have been diagnosed with autism, if you know, in the Philadelphia area?
Well, the last time, and that's somewhat of a challenge, the last time the Pennsylvania Autism Organization did a census, and that was 2014, you had 4,000 children and families living with autism in the Philadelphia community. Now, when they did the census a few years earlier in 2012, it was 2,000, and it's growing exponentially every year.
How is that going to affect us as these children then kind of grow up to be adults in the workforce, in their ability to care for themselves and, their need for social services? How is that going to play out?
Well, that's a major challenge that I'm focusing on. In City Council, I'm the chair of the Council Committee on Disabilities, and one of the concerns that I have, and we'll be having hearings, if not this fall, early next year, focusing on what's going to happen when these children who become adults age out of the system, because you receive services up to 21. After you turn 21, unless you qualify for a waiver, you don't receive additional services. And the waiting list for waivers is a very long process. And so that's going to have a major economic impact in our community, not just here in the city of Philadelphia or the greater Philadelphia region, but across the Commonwealth and across the country.
I mean, are most of these kids eventually going to be employable or not employable?
Well, you have a number of great organizations like ARC of Philadelphia that provides opportunities for people that have disabilities, like children with autism or adults with autism, to get them employed and provide vocational opportunities. But each child is different, and I think we need to provide more resources and more opportunities for those people who are on the autism spectrum who can go into the workforce, opportunities for them to do that.
Folks, if you've got questions for Councilman Green, if you have a family member with autism and want to figure out something about their situation, now's the time to give us a call. If you have legal questions, I'm still here for you. You can just give me a call with your legal question, and I will do my very best to answer it today. 215-227-2727. We're talking to Councilman Derek Green about Autism Speaks Walk, which is October the 22nd. I guess that's about 1 week from now.
Just about.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. 1 week from next Saturday at Citizens Bank Park. You're going to meet in the parking lot area?
Right. So we meet at Citizens Bank Park. The walk starts around 9 a.m. We are the Julian Green team, so I tell people to look for the green balloons. And so a lot of friends and family come out to support. The event is a great event for everyone.
And how long is the walk?
The walk is somewhat short. So we walk around Citizens Bank Park. So it's not one of these longer walks where it's a walk/5K. It's more of a fun activity because a lot of children who are on the autism spectrum also join us in the walk.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk to Vanessa from Germantown on line 1, Eric. Good morning, Vanessa. Vanessa?
Good. Okay, so going questions, if I could. First one is with the homelessness. We all know that, like you said, Dean, has to do with addiction and mental issues and things of that nature. But what I see happening in Philadelphia is there is a massive amount of gentrification, and people who are in their right minds and who do work have become victims of the banks and all this kind of stuff. We know about all that. And I think Philly needs to do something to turn that around. That's part of the problem. On my block alone, 3 families lost their homes to foreclosure, and in each case, someone of another persuasion has moved in. And it seems to be a trend all across the city. As you know, in Point Breeze, it was a massive gentrification, and it just seems like nothing is stopping it. Now they're moving up North Broad Street. You know, someone bought the Divine Lorraine Hotel, and now I understand they have some interest in other properties in that area. And it just goes on and on and on and on. So, you know, what is the remedy for that? Gentrification should not be allowed to push somebody out of their home. There should be some safeguards in place.
That's a good question. And I wonder, how does gentrification, how does it work that it pushes people out of neighborhoods? If I own a property in Point Breeze and I'm staying there and I've been there forever and a day and somebody offers to buy my property, I sell it, then that's not obviously something you're going to be able to stop. That's a arm's length transaction. You're telling me that you think people in this gentrification process are losing their homes. Is that it?
Yes. Yeah, I think, having an agreement to sell your house, and sometimes it was termed the cash, the keys deal, and these kinds of types of things. To me, my research would indicate that some of them are predatory in nature, because we know that they're offering it to people who are not educated about this process. So, you know, to pay someone $5,000 to move out of the house that they've been in since 1968 is utterly ridiculous, because we know that at least 10 times more than that is the value of that property. So I think there needs to be some more education about that aspect. But the other aspect is we need to educate people about checking their deeds. Dean, you know the story about where people were going and flipping these titles on elderly people, and they didn't know, and before you know it, they were out of their homes.
Right.
Because somebody, so it's broader than just the mental issue and all that, which of course is important as well. Because I go to the suburban station every day, and it's a whole city down there.
Yep.
You know, and it's really bad.
It is, and it detracts. It really detracts from the Philadelphia region and Philadelphia as a place where people want to come to shop, to dine, to experience cultural events. When you have to step over people who have urinated or defecated a few feet from where they're living, and you're walking around it and you smell it and you experience that, that's not a place you want to come and bring your family and kids to hang out for the day.
Yeah, I would agree with you. But the problem is that it's more than that. It's even in these little neighborhoods like Frankfurt. Let's look at Frankfurt for a minute. Frankfurt is going through the same thing now. We see a lot of Hispanics, a lot of poor African Americans, and poor Caucasians who are being pushed out now because people are coming from the waterfront up, and they're taking these houses. Over there, you have people who are not so educated, and so $5,000 may look like a lot of money to them, but in the reality of real estate, $5,000 is nothing.
No, listen, I agree. And if it's not an arm's length transaction, I wonder if there's a way to unravel that. But, you know, when somebody's not declared incompetent, even though they may be bordering on that, when they're not declared incompetent, they're entitled to make the decisions for themselves. And when we start getting into trying to undo these transactions, that creates a whole nother web of problems, because then you can never count on knowing whether you've actually purchased something in an arm's length transaction. So you're right, it's a sticky wicket, and it's not an easy solution. And it's going to take really a lot of different disciplines coming together. And, you know, that's why I think it's important that we start to kind of think in that direction. And that's why I offered up some of my services in that regard, because I am Philadelphia, and you know, to me, if my city looks bad, I feel bad because of it, and I want everybody in this city to be lifted up, not not stepped over. Not stepped over, but lifted up. All right, but we got off on a tangent. You had a second question, and Derek Green is here for autism primarily. So what's your other question, Vanessa?
So the other question is, I used to work at Green Tree School years ago, and I used to work with autistic children. And I should know this, but I was always wondering, why is it that it seems that more left-handed children are autistic than right-handed children?
I don't know that that's a theory that's scientifically proven, but is that something that you've experienced?
Yeah, when I was teaching at Franklintown Charter School, which had the high school students, I used to teach music there. I noticed that a majority of the kids in the class were left-handed.
Huh. Well, that might be not about autism, but more about artistic ability, because I think that when you're left-handed, that half of your brain, the right side of your brain, is your artistic side, and you're more inclined to be artistic. So if you're in a music class, I would think that's no.
Yeah, no, not artistic, autistic.
Autistic.
Yeah, not artistic. I'm sorry. Autistic.
Artistic.
I just woke up. I apologize.
That's all right.
Yeah.
So you're not talking about autism. You're talking about kids who are artistic.
No, autistic. Kids that have autism.
Oh, okay.
There seems.
Yeah, but you were in your interaction. You were in a music class when you observed these children. Yes.
I was teaching autistic kids music. I was contracted to do that with Green Tree School. And I noticed a majority of the kids, not even in the class, but in the school itself, the interactions I had, a lot of them are left-handed.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a connection, but maybe somebody else who can comment on that will call in. Derek?
Okay.
Well,
Vanessa, thanks for calling Court Radio.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye-bye.
great Sunday, dear.
I mean, Vanessa brings up some interesting points. My son actually is left-handed, and he's autistic, and he's also very art-inclined. He's always drawing. He likes drawing pictures. And I think if you look at some of our great entertainers and some musicians, it takes a lot of focus and discipline, and some tend to be left-handed. So maybe there is some type of connection between creativity and autism and left-handedness. I'm not sure. I haven't seen any studies in that regard, but my son is left-handed, and he is very artistically inclined.
Right. Autistic and artistic.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's talk to Lisa from North Philly on line 2, Eric.
Hi, my name is Lisa. I have a grandson that was just diagnosed as autism. I don't know anything about it, but I do work with children. I know I just want some more information and some help for my grandson, because like I said, I work with them, and I was on the bus one day for like eight days, and their behavior, I couldn't take it because I didn't understand it. So now that my grandson has it, I need to be educated more on this. I know this is a lot of work, and he cries. He's been crying since he's been 3 months.
All right.
And I really need some help and some
Lisa,
resources for my daughter.
Lisa, good questions. Let's see, Derek can point you in the right direction.
Well, Lisa, first of all, I'm glad that you called in to get information, and you being a caregiver, a grandmother, to provide the resources for your grandson is very important, because when you have a child with autism, you need a whole family.
I was crying like 3 o'clock in the morning because I know it's really serious. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? Because when I seen these children, when I was on the bus with these children, they were big children, and I couldn't stand their behavior. It really scared me, because we know we can't do nothing to the children. We had to try to, chastise them. So I had to remove myself because I didn't understand it. So now that I have a grandson that has it, I need some help and some schooling on that.
Well, let me do this.
Help my daughter.
There are a lot of great resources in the Philadelphia region from the Center for Autism, Philadelphia Autism Project. However, what I'll do is I'll give you my office number, which is 215-686-3450. Once again, that's 215-686-3450. And you can call my office and we'll have a conversation, and I can try to point you in the right direction based on where you are and where your child is. But the first most important thing is making sure that he can get connected with a developmental pediatrician. Make sure you start getting some of the analysis and information in reference to where your grandson may be on the spectrum, and then we can try to connect you with other organizations and resources to help you and your daughter and your family work through this path.
Lisa, thanks for calling Court Radio, and have a great Sunday. I think, Derek, that there's, a tremendous amount of need and a lack of information. And maybe there's still children who are not yet diagnosed who should be. What's the benefit of getting diagnosed early?
Well, the benefit of getting an early diagnosis, then you start to get a lot of different services. So when Lisa was talking about the challenges that she was saying with her grandson, once you have an early diagnosis, then you can get resources through either community behavioral health and some of the behavioral health providers around the city of Philadelphia. You may need a TSS or a therapeutic support service person with your child while they're in school. They can also provide additional resources like getting into the Center for Autism, which provides a lot of information for children and families and caregivers who are dealing with autism every day.
Where is that center? Well,
the Center for Autism is on Ford Road, so it's actually not that far from here. But there are a lot of different organizations. The center's been around for close to 50 years. We have the Philadelphia Autism Project, which is an initiative that I've helped provide funding for through City Council, along with former Councilman Dennis O'Brien. And so there's a lot of resources here in the city, and that's why I tell people to make sure you try to get the diagnosis as early as possible so you can get on the right track to get the services that you need for you and your family.
Does the services benefit and help to maximize the ability of a child with autism?
Absolutely. By having those type of services and those supports, you find out what's the best type of programs. You may know that your child is more artistically inclined, like my son Julian is. And so getting him in programs, or maybe more sports inclined, getting him in programs that may help them to develop more of the social interaction. They may need some behavioral health therapy or occupational therapy. So looking at and putting together a holistic plan for not only the medical needs of the child, but as well as the behavioral health and also education needs for the child as well.
All right, we got to take a break, folks. We got to let the sponsors have their way. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
The following is a paid program brought to you by My Philly Lawyer. The views and opinions expressed are those of the sponsor and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the station and its management.
Need more legal answers? Here's more Court Radio with your host, Dean Weitzman.
Good morning and welcome back. I'm Dean Weitzman, and it is Court Radio. All you got to do is give us a call at 215-227-2727. We've been talking with Councilman Derek Green on a topic that is near and dear to him, Autism Speaks, and the Autism Speaks Walk, scheduled for next Saturday at the Citizens Bank Park. Derek, welcome back. Thanks again for coming to Court Radio. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you and your listeners here at Radio 1.
We've been talking about autism, but folks, I just want to remind my listeners about one thing, because sometimes I get, emails or text messages over the week about a legal issue, and this is one that always comes up. I went and I bought a car, and I put a down payment, and I signed a contract, but I didn't go back and get the car. I changed my mind. I had second thoughts, and I changed my mind and decided not to get it. Can I get out of that, Dean? And the answer is no. No. Once you sign a contract and you obligate yourself legally to purchase that car, then you have to purchase the car. Now, the other side has an obligation to try to resell the car to somebody else, and if they do, then that may, ameliorate your problem. But no, you can't. There's not the 72-hour change of mind clause in most contracts. That if somebody comes to your house and sells you something at your front stoop, you have 72 hours to change your mind. If you refinance your house, the reason why they don't make distribution of the funds right away is because on a refi you have 72 hours to change your mind. There are some, but, people take it way too far, and they think that just about anything that you sign isn't valid for if you change your mind before 72 hours, and the answer is no. Most contracts, the vast majority, are going to be valid the second you sign your name. You could sign your name and 5 minutes later say, I changed my mind, and it's too late. So be careful on what you sign. And when you sign something as a co-sponsor or a co-obligor on a debt, you better understand that if that obligation is not paid by your nephew, cousin, uncle, sister, brother, it's going to be paid by you, like you own that car. All right. So if you don't want to have somebody calling you and putting bad credit against you, do not co-sign. Do not co-sign. And if you co-sign, just consider it a gift, because that's the worst case scenario, is that you've just made a $20,000 gift to cousin Vinny. So be careful. 215-227-2727. We're talking to Derek Green, Councilman at Large. What does that mean, Councilman at Large?
Well, unlike other council members, I represent the entire city of Philadelphia. So we have 17 council members, 10 district council members, and 7 at large who don't represent a specific area of the city, but represent the entire city of Philadelphia.
So you got to show love to everybody.
Right. So the entire city is my district, and I travel all over the city, from northeast to southwest, and from Frankfurt to West Philly.
So you're like a little mini mayor.
I don't have the resources that the mayor does, but I do get around a lot to a lot of parts of the city, visiting, and finding out what are the issues and concerns that people in Philadelphia have.
When you go around to different parts of the city, do you move in a caravan? Do you have security personnel?
I'm
a few Suburbans, black Suburbans and stuff.
I'm a low key guy. I drive myself, and there's very few parts of the city I've not been to or don't know a back way to get to.
Okay, all right. So, Derek, autism is very personal to you. You have a son, Julian, who was diagnosed at 2, and he's now 15.
Correct.
And so you've been living with this problem, this challenge, for 13 years. Tell us about what this, how do people finance this? I mean, is this covered by insurance? The services that autistic children, like if I've got Blue Cross and Blue Shield, are they going to have to pay for these services?
Well, you raise a very interesting question. And many children, many families that do have children on the spectrum do receive services from the state, which help provide for a lot of the programs that we talked about earlier. But also, when former Councilman Dennis O'Brien was in the State House, when he was Speaker of the House, he passed Act 62, which is the Autism Insurance Act, which makes sure that if you have coverage through your employer, to make sure certain services are provided for. Now, there's been some legal challenges in that regard, making sure that insurance companies are providing those insurances. We will be having hearings in City Council to address that issue in Act 62 to find out what's been in negotiations between the State Department of Human Services and insurance companies to make sure that if you do have insurance through your prime insurer, that insurance company is providing services for children with autism like Julian.
What is there an Autism Insurance Act?
Correct.
And what is that?
Well, the Autism Insurance Act that was passed a few years ago through in the House, it basically says that you cannot, if you're an insurance company, you cannot deny coverage for a child or a family that has someone on the autism spectrum. And so there's been a lot of discussions and negotiations going on, because not all insurance companies have been providing and have been denying people with insurance. There was a case not that long ago with a Philadelphia police officer who had a child on the autism spectrum and was trying to get coverage through their insurance company, was denied coverage, and that case went through litigation, as you know, and was resolved.
215-227-2727. That's Court Radio on Sunday mornings from 7 to 8, and it is My Philly Lawyer all week long. If you've got questions, all you got to do is give us a call. We're going to be in the studio for another 20 minutes or so, and we'll do our very best to tackle your questions. Let's talk to Michelle, line 1, Eric, from Northeast Philly, who has an autism question. Hi, Michelle. Welcome to Court Radio.
Hi, good morning. I love the show. I listen every Sunday morning when I'm at work. Good morning, Eric. I have a son with autism, and he's 17, and he's left-handed also.
Wow. Maybe
Wow.
maybe we're onto something
I
here.
know.
He is really weird, and he's not artistic like in drawing, but music is his gift.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
Like
another form of
the
art.
whole music thing is just it's just crazy with him. It's, you know, that's his thing.
So when did you Michelle, when was your son first diagnosed?
Well, with my son, like Eric said, every case is different. With my son, he was fine up until he was 2. And then we noticed like he just like regressed, basically. Everything that he had been doing up to that point, he just stopped and became a loner and would sit in a corner. And we brought it to the attention of our pediatrician. And this was 2001. We brought it to at that point, the pediatrician, that particular one, and at that time, a lot of them weren't aware of signs of autism. And she kind of blew it off as, oh, he's a boy. Boys develop slower than girls. He'll be okay. And health-wise, he was fine, but everything else wasn't right. And then when another year went by, he went back for his annual, well visit. We were like, me and his father, we were just, something isn't right. Nothing has changed, and he's, it's not getting any better. And at that point, we went on to see a developmental pediatrician where he was diagnosed.
So,
and from that point on, we went on to get services and everything.
Michelle, it's really good that you kept after the professionals, because sometimes that's the difference between getting service and not, is having an advocate as a parent on behalf of your child.
Most definitely. We knew something wasn't right. And it was, and like I said, at that time, a lot of pediatricians weren't aware, and we had no clue about autism. The most I knew about autism at that time was, remember the movie Rain Man?
Yep.
That was all I knew. And so it opened up it was a whole new world for all of us, my whole entire family.
That dude made some money.
And,
I said,
yes, he did.
He made some money. I wonder if, what the percentage of those who have diagnosed with autism who really can go on to be self-sufficient and lead an independent life, because this is a spectrum, right? So it goes from those who are the very least affected to those who are profoundly affected. Let's see what Derek has to say about that. Hold on one second, Michelle.
Well, it's interesting, Michelle. Thank you for your advocacy. And as Dean was saying, it is a broad spectrum. In fact, there's a new movie that just came out called The Accountant with Ben Affleck, and he is someone who has Asperger's. And you will find that some of our most prolific scientists and artists have Asperger's, which is part of the autism spectrum. So it's a broad spectrum, and I think you did the right thing. And the most important thing is that what I would say to any caregiver, parent, you are the number one advocate for your child. You know your child more than anyone else. And when someone says everything's okay, but you see that there's some challenges and concerns, you need to press the professionals and the physicians, although they're medically trained. You are the best advocate and person for your child, and you did the right thing, and you're the type of message and the type of advocate that we need to have in our community to make sure when you have a challenge with your child to press forward and get the information that you need.
Yes, most definitely. And my son isn't, he's not going to be the one, that's going to have the job, or, me and my husband's plans are my son will be with us for the rest of our life. And we're training our younger children. Once we can't take care of him anymore, it's your responsibility to take care of your brother. And I'm sorry to put this on you at such a young age, but I don't want him in a group home. You get so scared and so many things, and abuse and so many different things. And to me, this is what family is for. You grew up with your brother. You know your brother. You know what he needs. You know what he wants. He is verbal to a certain extent. He speaks when he wants to speak, basically. But my question to you was, there's so many services out here that after 17 years, we're still not getting, and, nobody will tell you. If you don't know or you don't ask, nobody tells you anything, and there's so many more things out here that are being offered. And if you don't know what to look for, you can't get it.
All right, Michelle, thanks for calling Court Radio, and we'll give Derek a chance to comment on that. And have a great Sunday, and keep on listening.
Thank you so much. You enjoy your day, too.
All right. You know, there are people who are just kind of starting out in this process, who have children who are 1.5 and 2.5 years old. Is there a number that they can call to get them started on that path where they can figure out who the best pediatricians are, where the services are, what kinds of services are available? Is there a general number or website that folks can go to start educating themselves?
Well, that was one of the reasons why we created Philadelphia Autism Project. People can go through PhiladelphiaAutismProject.org to get that information. Because there are a lot of different services, and your last caller was very correct. When you first get a diagnosis, you feel like you're just one person in darkness, and you feel like you're the only family going through the situation, and then you find out that there's so many other families going through the same thing, going through the same path. Like, where do you go to for dental care? Where do you go to for your not only behavioral health, but your traditional family physician? What about other activities? Like I'm in a soccer program for children that have autism and other disabilities for my son. We do every Sunday. Or there's basketball programs. There's all kinds of, there's a friend of mine that runs a tennis program. So there's a lot of different programs out there, but the challenge is how do we get that information in one location? That's what we're trying to do with the Philadelphia Autism Project, and that's what Autism Speaks does around the country by pulling resources together to provide information so people can find out about some of these programs in their communities.
215-227-2727. Joyce, stay on the line. We'll be back for your question. And if you have questions, folks, we still have a few more minutes, but we're going to have some sponsors break, and we'll be back shortly.
The following is a paid program brought to you by My Philly Lawyer. The views and opinions expressed are those of the sponsor and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the station and its management.
Need more legal answers? Here's more Court Radio with your host, Dean Weitzman.
Good morning and welcome back. I'm Dean Weitzman, and this is Court Radio. And this is your opportunity to ask your legal questions one at a time. 215-227-2727. We've been speaking with Derek Green, Councilman at Large, City of Philadelphia, about autism and about his personal confrontation of this disease with his son Julian and how they've worked through that. Julian now is 15. Where does he go to school at?
So he just started high school at Hill Freeman World Academy, and so the transition has been great. We've had some challenges with the bus in the morning because the bus is supposed to pick him up at 7:45. Sometimes it gets there at 8:05. Sometimes it's gotten there at 8:20, 8:30. Luckily, they're getting back on a more regular schedule, and the bus driver and the transportation company has been calling me when they're going to be late. But we wanted him to develop his independence, so from kindergarten to 8th grade, I had to take him to school every day at Houston Elementary School, not far from us in Mount Airy. But now allowing him to catch the bus gives him a little more independence, and we're trying to, although Julian's on the autism spectrum, we're trying to allow him to develop as any other teen would do, and trying to develop more maturation process and getting more independent, although we are dealing with the challenges of autism as well.
So he actually walks out of the house and goes to the corner and waits for the bus?
Well, I wait for him. The bus picks him up in front of the house, so I wait with him.
You wait with him?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Next week, in kind of a community outreach, there's going to be the Autism Speaks Walk. It takes place at Citizens Bank Park next Saturday. What time?
9 o'clock.
9 a.m. And how do people, if they want to participate, if they want their families to walk, how do they get involved and registered?
Well, if they want to make a donation, they can always just go to autismspeakswalk.org/Philadelphia. Often some people just come and join a team. So we're Team Julian Green. We have green balloons. You can also help and support by going to my Facebook page, Councilman Derek Green. But we just encourage people to come out if you have a child that's on the spectrum, or if you have a friend or a coworker, or a family member, or a church member, just come out and support and join either my team or join some of the other teams outside and walk around and get a little exercise and learn about autism in Philadelphia.
I hope that the weather is as beautiful as it has been this past weekend. All right, let's talk to Joyce from North Philly. Joyce, good morning. Joyce?
How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks for calling Court Radio. What can I do for you this morning?
I have a child support question. I have a daughter. She's well over the age of 18, and I had an order enforced, and he never paid all the monies that he owed me. So is it just money that's just gone, you'll never see, or whatever happens to that order when they do end off with the balance?
No. In fact, I'll give you an example. I represent people, as you probably know, who have personal injury claims. They've been injured by auto accidents or slip and falls or medical malpractice. They find themselves injured and requiring treatment, and we seek to get them compensation. It's not uncommon for my clients at the time that we get them their settlement for our office to be approached by the district attorney's office, and sometimes about debts that are years and years and years old, decades beyond the 18th birthday. Those debts never go away. So if your son's father has a tax return, it seems to me that would be potentially subject to getting grabbed by the authorities, and they look for that kind of stuff. So the quick answer to your question is no, it doesn't go away. And if he should find himself to come into money, you stand a decent chance of getting compensated.
So how do I go about doing that? Since it's so old, how do I contact the attorney, or do I have to get an attorney to contact that attorney? You
can call Paula Musey, who's with the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, and Paula handles these old child support debts, and she goes after them in various ways, and she might be able to give you some more information about how to collect or how to keep the debt current enough so that when he comes into money, you'll be taken care of.
Could you spell her last name? I'm sorry.
M-U-S-I, Musey, Paula, at the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. I'd give you her number, but I don't have it on me right now. But if you look her up or Google her, you'll probably be able to.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, I'm here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we were cut off or something. I got M, and that was it.
if you call the district attorney's office and ask for Paula, they'll hook you up with her.
Okay, and I'm sorry. What was her title again?
She's she's with the unit that handles child support enforcement.
Oh, child support enforcement.
Yep.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right. Take care, Joyce. Thanks for calling Court Radio.
Day.
You too. Folks, 215-227-2727. We're kind of running out of time, so I'm going to wrap up. Sorry. And it isn't really me, it's Eric. So if you have a problem with me wrapping up and you're sitting on hold, Eric is here. He'll take your call. He's got big shoulders. He can handle it. Me, I would keep talking for hours, but, that's just not going to happen because Eric's here. He's a company man, and he makes sure that I toe the company line. Derek Green, Councilman at Large, it's always great to have you. I know you're going to be back again at some point.
Yes.
When you make that run for mayor or something. As you make your way around, he's speechless now. As you make your way around the city, listen. There was one last thing I wanted to talk to you about. We really don't have time, so maybe you can circle back. The Medical Marijuana Act that was established in the Commonwealth is going to have to be dealt with by the city, and you're going to have to find places for dispensaries.
Absolutely. In fact, we're having hearings regarding that issue. We've had hearings, we'll be having new hearings. In fact, this Thursday is a 2-year anniversary controversy when then Councilman Kenny decriminalized small amounts of marijuana. So I'm looking at introducing legislation to see how Philadelphia moves through with the whole medical marijuana process, because we have 26 states that allow it, and Pennsylvania is now one of them.
How do people get in touch with you if they have that question about medical marijuana, autism, or anything else?
They can reach me at 215-686-3450.